In this demo, I'm going to be having a look at question 2.5, enterprise computing for CNOS. So if I'm looking at the marking rubric, it says that I need to do the following. I need to install Server 2019. Active Directory needs to be installed and configured. DNS needs to be installed and configured correctly. Then DHCP needs to be installed and WDS needs to be installed. I'll go into my virtual computers. I'll open up my HSU lab. And then once I've opened up my lab, I'm going to open up Hyper-V. From Hyper-V, I'm going to go to New Virtual Machine. Go to Next. And I'm going to call it Suben Server 2019. Remember, we always give it a name that includes a bit of your name and then what it's all about. I'll go Next. Generation 2. Next. 2000. Go next. For now, I'm not going to, oh, let's see, what do I have? Okay, I'm going to put it onto the private switch. Go next. Create a virtual hard drive. Leave it as it is. Go next. Install an operating system. I'm going to browse and I'm going to look for Server 2019. Oh, here they've got 2022. So I'm going to select 2022. So you can select either 2016 or 2022, okay? But because they said 2019, we'll go one up, which is 2022. I'm going to say open, next, and then finish. So in the previous videos, you would have seen I've done the installation on server 2016. So this one is now server 2022, although I've named it 2019 here. I'm going to start it, and then I'm going to start with the installation. Right. If I don't press any key, you'll see it gives me this error. What do? I press the reset button, and then I press any key on the keyboard to reset. And then it should start booting. So if I have not pressed a key on the keyboard, that's when it's going to give me that error. It's basically saying it's looking for the operating system to boot, but it can't find it. I'll go next and install now. Whilst this is completing, I'm just going to have a look at what are the other things that, okay. Now, when I'm choosing, very, very importantly here, I need to choose the option that says Standard Evaluation Desktop Experience. If I do not choose this one, it will boot into a command prompt. Then I need to start the installation again. So importantly, I select the second option here, which is Desktop Experience. I go next. I need to accept the license. Go next. I'm going to do a custom installation. Go next. And then it's going to start copying the files. So far, it looks pretty similar to installing Windows 10. What else is it asking us in the question paper? So there's your marking rubric. It wants the server to be installed for 5 marks. Then it wants Active Directory to be installed and configured correctly. Active Directory is a database of user accounts, computer accounts that allows us to manage the network. Okay. Previously, you were only creating user accounts on the local computer. If you created it on Windows 10 8, that account did not exist on Windows 10B. Here, if you create the user account in the domain, right, regardless of which computer you log in from, that account is part of the domain. So when we install Active Directory, we're actually going to install or we're going to configure a domain. And you'll see how that works just now. Looking at the questions, if I scroll up, it says, okay, so it just says you need to test the enterprise features offered by Windows Server 2019 to do the following. So we're working with Server 2022, or you can also work with 2016. But because they mentioned 2019 here, we'll go to the latest edition. The difference between the server operating system and the client operating system is that the server operating system manages the entire domain. The client operating system only manages the computer on which it is installed. The client operating system is meant to connect to a server which is hosting a domain. When we install Active Directory on the server computer, it's called now a DC or a domain controller. So what is a DC or a domain controller? It is a computer on which Active Directory, it is a server computer on which Active Directory has been installed. What are these other things? DNS. DNS is domain naming system. It is a server that allows me to locate computers in a TCP IP network using their host names. In other words, if I'm looking for any computer, I use the computer's name, and it tells me then which is the IP address for that computer's name. Okay, and this name is called a host name. If Active Directory needs to locate any object, it also needs to use DNS to locate objects. So the purpose of DNS is to find and locate objects, users, computers on a TCP IP network. DHCP, what is that? Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. It allows me to set a pool of IP addresses that I can make available to the clients. So if a client comes onto the network and says, I want to get an IP address, the server, from the range or pool of IP addresses that we create, can give that client computer one of its IP addresses. So DHCP server is for what? To give clients IP addresses. Apart from IP addresses, it also gives the client computers TCP IP configuration information. What does that mean? The address of the servers on the network that offer networking services. For example, if I wanted to know where's the email server, DHCP can tell me where's the email server. If I want to know where's the router is going to give me access to the internet or to another network, or what we call the default gateway. DHCP can also give me that information. So any additional TCP IP settings can also be given to me using the DHCP server. The last one there, WDS, Windows Deployment Services. When I need to install hundreds of computers or hundreds of servers, enterprise means it's a very large network. If I need to install hundreds of computers or hundreds of servers, I will use Windows Deployment Services. What does it mean? It means that I install one computer, I put all of the software on that computer that is required, and I set all the settings identically to what is required on the rest of the network. So in other words, it's like a template or it's like a model computer that I create that I want the rest of the computers to be like this one. So I first install the server and I configure it according to how I want all the other servers to be configured. Then I then clone it or make a copy of it and store it in an image file. And I use that image file to then install the operating system on hundreds of computers using WDS or Windows Deployment Services. So how does it work? I first install one computer, I take an image of it, I store it on the server. Then I get all the client's computers that don't have any operating system to boot and to connect to my WDS server. Once I can see them on the WDS server, I then send them the image of the operating system. It then automatically installs the operating system on hundreds of client or server computers. So that's the purpose of WDS. Looking back at my installation, so by default, it creates a user account that's called administrator. When I log in, this is called the super user account, administrator. I'll need to log on using the administrative account. So I'm going to set my password. And then I'm going to connect to it. And log into my server. So the server now is here's my server. For the server now, the main tool, you'll see it's going to automatically open up a program called Server Manager. This is only found in Windows Server. If you are looking for Server Manager in Windows 10, there's no Server Manager there. So you're using the wrong virtual computer. Now it says I can also try using the admin center if I want. Now, if I look at the servers, the local servers, I can see there's the server that I've just installed. Okay. It says here the computer name is, it's given a name to this computer. So I'm now in Server Manager. I'm going to click on the computer name and I'm going to change the computer name to my name, Suben Server 2022. Okay, so Suben Server 2022. Okay, and it says I must restart. So then I'm going to restart. So first thing I've done, I've gone into Server Manager, which is opened up automatically for me. And then I renamed my server and I put in my name, Server 2022. And then I'm going to close and it's going to restart and I'm going to let it restart. In the meantime, I'm going to go and create my document. So I want a document that I'm going to be using for my screenshots for assignment 2. So let me just go and open up a Word document. Word document. I'm going to say file, save as. This is my CNOS assignment 2 screenshots. So where is it saving it? So I'm just going to save it in my OneDrive account. Okay, so this is not set up, so I'll just save it locally in my downloads. And this is now which question? Is question 2.5. So I'm just going to copy that, put it into my Word document. Okay, and then I need to show for 5 marks that my server has been installed correctly. My server is rebooted. I'm then going to log in. Okay, so if I click on local server on the left-hand side here, it now shows me that my server has been installed. It's server 2022 in Server Manager. And I've installed operating system version Windows Server 2022. So I can now take a screenshot of this here. So I'm going to go back into this. I'm going to open my snipping tool, new snip, and I can see that I've got Suben's server, and there's the date, time. The entire screenshot is here. I'm going to go into my Word document, and this is Windows Server 2022 is installed. So I can show here Windows Server 2022 installed and renamed to Suben Server 2022. So this screenshot now proves that I've done the installation, which is the first part. Next thing it says, I need to show that Active Directory is installed and configured. Now, before I install Active Directory, I need to set a static IP address. On the server now, I'm going to go to its networking properties here, network and internet properties. I'm going to go to Ethernet, and I'm going to change the adapter settings. Properties. I'm going to go to TCP IP version 4 properties, and I'm going to set a static IP address. 192.168.10. I'm going to make it 50. It automatically fills in the rest of the information, and I leave the rest of it blank. Okay? So very importantly, first thing before I install Active Directory is to set a static IP address. Say OK, close. Now that I've set a static IP address, I'm going to go and install Active Directory. So where do I go? I click on Start. I click on Server Manager. It opens up Server Manager. From Server Manager, I'm going to go to Add Roles and Features. So in the center of the screen, I can see it says Add Roles and Features. I click on that. It then allows me to go through a wizard. I go next. It's a role-based feature installation. There's my one server that I've got installed there. Go next. And I'm going to look for Active Directory domain services. When I put a tick in Active Directory domain services, it says all of these additional features needs to be installed. I'll say add features, and then I'll go next, go next, next, and then install. And then I'll click close once it is installed. Now, if I look on the left-hand side here, I can see that I've got ADDS. And then it says that there's more action that is required. So if I click on the top here where it says more, I need to click on promote this server to a domain controller. So I'm going to click on promote the server to a domain controller. And now I'm going to install Active Directory, which is the domain. I'll click on new forest. And then what is the name of the forest or the domain that you're going to install? It's going to be your first name, CNOS server. So the domain is going to be called Suben CNOS server.com. You are going to make it your name, server.com. So the functional label is set as server 2016. I'm going to leave it as that. And I'm going to now type in a password. Go next, next. Go next again. Next again. Next. It's going to tell me that I need to install. I'll click on install. And then you'll see it's going to restart. Once it is rebooted, I'm now going to log on to the domain. So it says sign in to Subin CNOS server domain. So the username that we use is administrator. And the password is whatever password that you have set when you did the installation. Now you can see on the left-hand side, it's got ADDS here, which is Active Directory Domain Services. And it's, if I scroll down here, you can see there's details about the Active Directory Domain Services that was installed. Now, what is the screenshot that I'm going to take? I'm going to go here to Tools, and I'm going to open up Active Directory Users and Computers. And in Active Directory Users and Computers, I'm then going to make this larger so I can see all of the details of the domain or Active Directory that has been installed. Okay, so I can see now that Active Directory has been successfully installed as per the requirements. Then I'll take a screenshot of this. So I'll put in my screenshot, and then I put in the description of what it's telling me. Active Directory installed for the Suben Server 2022 domain. Next thing, it's asking me for DNS. So I'm going to go in to my server, and I'm going to look for DNS now. So I go to Tools, and I can see there's DNS here. So I'm going to click on DNS, and I'm going to expand my DNS. Forward lookup zone. Suben server CNOS. Okay, so I can see now that I'm here. So I'm going to look at domain DNS zones. Okay, I can click here. So then this is the next screenshot that I'm going to take. Okay, so now I'm going to take a screenshot. So I want to go open this up and then open up my snipping tool again. And then this is now showing that I have installed DNS correctly. So I go back into my Word document, I paste it here, and then I say DNS installed on server 2022. Okay, so far I've got the server that's installed, Active Directory that's installed and configured, DNS that's installed and configured, DHCP is the next one I'm looking for. So I'm going to go now into my server, and I'm going to install DHCP. Again, to install any of these services, where do I go? I click on the Windows or Start. I click on Server Manager. Once Server Manager opens, I'm going to say Add Roles and Features. Okay, Server Manager was still busy. Now I go to Add Roles and Features. I go Next, 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 and this time I'm looking for DHCP. There's DHCP here. So I click on DHCP, Add Features, Next, 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 and Install. Okay, so I can see DHCP has been installed. Now I'm going to go and configure my DHCP server. So I'm going to click on more here and complete DHCP configuration. Go next. So I'm going to use the same server details and click on close. So it says complete DHCP configuration. Okay, this doesn't seem to be opening. So I'm just going to go to Tools, DHCP. And from this DHCP here now, I'm going to complete the configuration. So I'm going to go to IP version 4. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to say new scope. Scope is the range of IP addresses that we need to give out to the client. I'm going to go next. What is the scope going to be called? You can just give it your name, the band scope. Go next. The start IP address is going to be the same range of the server. So 192.168.10. It's going to start from 51 and it's going to end at 192.168.10 dot 101. So 50 IP addresses is available on the server. We're going to go next. Any exclusions? We're going to exclude. No need to do any exclusions. Go next. We'll leave it as the standard. Configure additional options. Yes. The default gateway is the address of the server. So the address of the server is 192.168.10.50. I click on add. Go next. Next. Wins goes next. Activate the scope. Yes. And then finish. Now I click on the scope and I click on the address pool. It says that I have the following addresses that's available for allocation to clients. Okay, so I can see here. Right, I click on address pool and that's all that I need to configure for the server. So I'm going to take a screenshot of this. And this one is DHCP server installed and scope configured. And the last one is WDS. So to get the WDS screenshot now, where am I going to go? I'll go back into my server. I'm going to close this. And then I'm going to close my server manager, open it up again. So start, server manager. And then I'm going to say add roles and features. And this time I'm going to add the WDS role. So I look for Windows Deployment Services. There's it here. I put a tick in it. I add the features. Go next, 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 and install. On the left-hand side here now, I can see WDS has been installed. If I go on the top right here and scroll down, I've got Windows Deployment Services MMC. I can see there's my servers that I have. No pre-state servers. So it's not configured. I need to configure my server. Go next. Integrated with Active Directory. Go next. Okay, so then I will need to do some additional configuration thereafter. So I can show now that the server has been installed. And then if there's any additional configuration that you're going to be doing, you can then configure it here. So you can go to properties, and then you can configure any additional properties as required. I'm just going to take my screenshot to show that WDS has been installed. And that completes question 2.5.